Namaste. Today we are here on the fifth episode of Talks on Life. Today we have two inquiries. Inquiry number one comes from Meeta Banerjee. She had asked, what are the qualities of the soul?
Namaste. Meeta Banerjee, I would like to ask you a counter question. What is your idea or definition of soul? Is it something that is there inside the body, according to you? Is it a subtle energy? Is it a pack of space somewhere inside? So, which part of the body does the soul exist? When the body dies, does the soul go away from the body? And then we pray, may his soul rest in peace. Where does it rest? And if it is not in peace, then what happens to that soul? Because the word has come basically from the three Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, which have a common source, the Genesis of the Old Testament. And according to that, then you don't have a soul because you are a woman. Because first, Adam was created by God as an image of himself, and then after some time, when Adam was feeling lonely, he asked for a companion. Then God created Eve, the first woman, from the ribs of Adam. So that is why they say, it has been said, that men have soul, but women do not have soul. They're just supposed to serve men. That's the idea. That is why in modern terminology, all over the world, the word soul is not used anymore, especially when it comes to spiritual language. What are the Indian expressions? The main expression here is Atma. And Atma has distinctions, two distinctions, Paramatma and Jivatma. Actually, this distinction does not exist, but in relative terms, they do. I will explain. What is Jivatma? Jivatma is identity, your sense of I beyond the ego. It's not the ego I, the greater I, but which is centered around your individual existence, your name, form, your body, your mind, your emotion, your desires, your ego. That is your identity. And that identity does not have any quality. Please try to remember this. The three bodies that you are, they have qualities, they have attributes. What are the three bodies? The physical body, the subtle body, and the causal body. These three bodies have attributes: the sattva, raja, and tama, the spiritual, the ideal, and the physical. So, your nature, these three form the crux of your nature, the human nature, your individual nature. That individuality, that nature is built on quality, and identity is not a quality. Identity is the witnessing passive self that observes and witnesses the nature, the three bodies. That is not a quality. Neither is it an attribute. It is not changeable. What is quality in nature? Anything that is created has a quality. Anything that is manifested or projected has qualities or attributes. But your identity is not something that is created. It is not something that is manifested. Your identity is manifesting itself through your individuality. It is not a quality. When the manifestation takes place of that individuality, when the creation happens, it happens in time, it has a duration, then it has qualities and attributes. But even identity is not the ultimate. As long as we are identified with our body, with our form, with our desires, our ego and expectations, the question of identity or Jivatma is there. But identity is actually a reflection of entity. Entity is Paramatma. Or to use a more adequate terminology than soul, entity means consciousness. So there is actually one consciousness, or there is only consciousness, which is reflected in all the manifested worlds, both the manifested and the unmanifested. When it is manifested in a single unit, let's say for a human being, let's say for you or for me, then there is a question of identity, only because we identify ourselves with the name and form. That's why the question of identity comes. It's like there are many containers and each container contains some water. You put these containers in the open and every container, the water in every container will reflect the sun. So this reflection of each container is the identity, but the sun is one. So there are 100 containers and then it may look like 100 identities, but they are all reflections of one consciousness or the only consciousness. So, to make it simple, consciousness or entity, from that the reflection of consciousness is identity, and the shadow of identity is the ego or your individuality. When it comes to ego, when it comes to individuality, then the question of qualities and attributes come. So when the body dies, the self or the Atma or consciousness does not go anywhere. It's always there in its pristine, pure form or beyond form. What goes away from the body is the subtle body, is the mind, is the desire, is the project that you still have, the pending work that needs to be done. That is all encapsulated in energy form, and it goes away and waits. Waits for what? Waits to take a physical form again. Consciousness remains as it is, and when it again takes a physical form, another reflection is there, which again becomes your identity. So it's a evolution of identifications. So next time when you try to understand these concepts, do not use the word soul, because the word has no clarity whatsoever. It can be very misleading. In the West, they say when somebody sneezes, they say bless you, because they believe that while sneezing, the soul will go away from the nose. That's why they say bless you, so that the soul can come back. So all these concepts are there which will be misleading for you and you will be confused. So better to use Indian words: Atma, Jivatma, Paramatma, Brahmo, Chaitanya, Chetana. All these words will lead you to the right direction. I hope I've been able to clarify your point. Thank you.
Inquiry number 2 comes from Alok Chakraborty. Alok Chakraborty had asked, please explain about the relative concepts of time.
Alok Chakravarti, we have deliberately kept your question short to save time. Time here again. So it's a big subject. It can be an endless talk. So we'll try to be brief. You have asked about the concepts of time. Well, in Indian spiritual traditions, time is considered to be the fourth dimension, though it is not absolute, and I'll explain why. The three dimensions of physical life are, as you know, length, breadth, and height. Fourth dimension is time. Fifth is mind. Sixth is intelligence. And seventh is bliss. It can be seventh, it can also be said beyond dimension. Now, so when you consider the three dimensions, the first three dimensions, how does the concept of time come into this? Through a perception of change, through a perception of movement, of dynamics. We are always seeing that things are changing in nature, also within ourselves. Our bodies are growing older. Lot of things are happening and changing inside the metabolism, cellular activities, respiration, blood circulation, everything. And also in nature we see flowers blooming in the morning and falling on the ground in the evening. So it is this concept that the flower blooms and then falls, and then we see that it happens within a duration, and morning, evening, and then we are unconsciously, even we are sort of giving it a time, we are measuring it in terms of time from our perspective. Imagine, for instance, just as a hypothetical, an absurd assumption that the world becomes static, everything becomes static, it is where it is. All the molecules, to all the trees and the plants, to every human life, everything becomes static. Then time ceases to exist. So, when human beings have seen this change, the sun sets and then they don't know what to do in the dark. I'm talking about the primitive, the ancient human beings, and then they see the sun rising again, and then they see this pattern repeating itself. Seasons are coming, rains are coming, then rains stop, and then autumn comes, winter comes, all these changes that are constantly going on. They see children growing. In relative to themselves, when they see these changes, or when they saw these changes, the concept of time came. Does time exist? In absolute terms, no, but in absolute terms, nothing exists. The world as we know it, very important to understand this, does not exist in absolute terms. That is, from the aspect of consciousness. So as long as we are in the relative world, as long as we are in the dimensional world, time does exist because we conceive of it, because we see its effects on the physical world and also the mental world and our emotional world, but we'll come to that later. Now, this has been dealt with in India from the very ancient times. Some people say even from before the Vedic age. Consider the idea or the form of Kali. The word Kali comes from Kal, time. And Kali is dancing. It is not that time is dancing, it is life is dancing. And through that dance, the idea of time is being envisaged, is being conceived. The dancing in time. And she has her 4 hands, which are the 4 forces in nature. And then she has this mala or the necklace of heads, skulls on her chest. So it also denotes a concept of time, birth, death, all related to time. Whatever appears, immediately it is subject to time. Whatever appears physically, whatever is manifested, immediately it is subject to time. It has a duration. Whether it is a molecule or a human life or a plant life, life of a tortoise, or even a mountain, like the Himalayas. It is now existing, but it is in time. Once upon a time, it was underwater, and it may again go down under the water. And it is every year it is rising inch by inch, because that tectonic crash still has an effect on the mountains. But Kali is dancing where? And that is the search. That is the human quest. She is dancing on the figure of Shiva. And Shiva is considered to be the seer of time, the witness of time, beyond time. Because Shiva is considered to be pure consciousness, formless, pure consciousness. So that is why time has an effect on our bodies, because the body is going to die. Time has an effect even on the mind, though the mind is 5th dimension, because the mind changes. And in the quest or in sadhana, in this journey towards consciousness, the mind will also die one day, so it is subject to time. Intelligence will also die. Our discrimination, our thoughts, our rationality, whatever, they also change constantly. Change means time has an effect. At this moment, I am thinking something. After 1 hour, my thoughts are changing. Somebody has convinced me about something. My ideology can also change. So, intelligence will change, so it is also in a way subject to time. Less if you compare it to the physical dimensions. But beyond that, when you are in the realm of bliss, then you are going beyond the body, mind, intelligence. Not that they don't exist. They are not anymore identified with. So, for example, if there is Shiva sitting in Kailash, it is not that he does not exist, but he does not identify himself with his body, with his mind, with his intelligence. They are all still. The body goes through the natural wear and tear, but he remains beyond that, beyond his body consciousness. From that aspect, from that point of stillness, time does not exist. So, you had also asked me about biological time, psychological time. Well, very briefly, I'll give you one or two little examples of what I understand by biological time. For example, you will see that every 7 years of human life, major changes take place because, according to gene scientists, they say that almost 1/3 of our cells, they die and are replaced by new ones. And this happens every 7 years in a major way. This happens, and that's why 7 and multiples of 7 are very threshold periods of our life. 7, 14, 21, 28. You go on calculating and you'll see that these are crucial time when major changes take place, not only in the body but in our attitudes, in our mentality, in our outlook to life, in our response to life. Things change in a big way, though the main strain of information remains, passing on from older generation genes to the newer generation genes, which are, or the cells which are taking over. And our Guruji used to say that every life form, if you multiply its maturity age with 7, that is usually its lifespan. For example, a dog matures at the age of 2. So a dog's lifespan is usually 14, usually. In the same way, a cow matures at the age of 3. So a normal, healthy cow will live generally till he or she is 21. In the same way, the human maturity age is 21. So human beings' normal lifespan should be 147. That is why many yogis and many sannyasis, they live for a long time. Maybe 100 years, 110 years, 120 years, they live for a long time. But why don't we, normal people, why don't we live for that long? Because of our lifestyle problems, our tensions, our pressure, etc., etc. Now, from this, an interesting follow-up or a consequence is also Hatha Yoga. In Hatha Yoga, they can manipulate this biological time to some extent. How? For example, how many breaths do we take one day, in one day? More or less, it has been observed that 20,400 is the average number of breaths that we take, inhale and exhale. 16 breaths per minute. So, when we talk about lifespan, it is not only about time. If somebody is supposed to live for 80 years, it actually means 20,400 breaths per day into 80 years. 20,400 into 365 into 80. That should be the lifespan. So what some yogis do, like for example Loknath Brahmachari or some yogis, they reduce the number of breaths in their body. Instead of 16 per minute, they reduce it to 8, even to 4, even to 2. The more you reduce, the better it is for the body to sustain itself. So, the span that you had, that this body is going to take so many millions of breaths in a lifetime, that million remains the same, but the time is extended. The physical time is extended. The number of days, the months and the years, they get extended. So, a normal, generally what is considered to be normal, 80-year-old lifespan can be extended to 150 years or 200 years through this manipulation or control of breathing. That is, I am just explaining to you a concept of biological time. We have also talked about psychological time. It is something that is happening every moment to you, to me, to everybody. Suppose you have gone to a party and your friends have taken you there, almost forced you to go to the party, and you are getting bored because people are talking about very superficial things. So you're always looking at the watch or looking at the clock and wondering, when will the time come and it will be 10 o'clock and 10:30 and I can say good night and just travel back home and I will relax with a book, or I have some things to do with my phone, I listen to some music. You are projecting yourself in the future. You're constantly thinking of what I will do in the future, and you are getting bored with the present moment. Time seems to be dragging itself. Your mind is totally disconnected from the present moment. It seems that the time is going very slowly. For the clock to travel 5 minutes seems to be eternity. But then there is someone beside you who is also not participating in these frivolous conversations, and you strike up a conversation with that person and it becomes very interesting, very exciting. That person has some wonderful things to say and he provokes you and inspires you to say certain things, certain experiences that you have, and immediately you are engrossed, engaged, and then suddenly it is 10 o'clock, 10:30, dinner time, and you feel sorry that you have to leave this person and go back home. Time flies outside. Inside, time had almost become still. Very interesting, this relativity. That the more the mind is engaged, the more the mind is connected to the moment, the more we are going beyond time. And that is what people are trying to do in spirituality. That is the whole idea of this modern concept of mindfulness. That wherever you are completely mindful. Your mind is fully there. Desire is not there, because desire is connected to the future. The future in reality does not exist. It exists only in imagination. And we are spending, or we are sort of wasting so much energy on these thoughts, fears, aspirations about the future. We are so much engrossed in the future that we are not concentrating on the present. And that's why we are running, we are feeling that time is almost killing us. Either the past, we are playing with our memories, we are nostalgic, we are resentful, or we are thinking about the future. So spiritual teachers are always telling us to concentrate on this moment. The future does not exist, the past does not exist. With full mind, with total concentration. And total concentration can only happen when there is no desire. So usually, we see among the animals that they are not very conscious of time, not very much, much less than human beings. It is very little time, for little periods, they become conscious. But otherwise, they are not thinking much about the future. And there is absolutely no past thinking in their mind. Yes, they do grow friendships. Dogs, for example, become very close companions to human beings. There is this affinity, but that does not mean that the dog is carrying the burden of memories. It is carrying the impression of a relationship, but not memories. I'll give you an example. During Indira Gandhi's time in India, a team of scientists, which included some scientists from the West, had taken permission from her, from our Prime Minister, that they would like to pick up a Jarwa from the Andamans, bring him to Delhi, New Delhi, and do certain experiments with him, study him, try to understand him. There was also a woman who knew the Jarwa language, which is very basic, so she knew the language. This man, this Jarwa young man, was brought to New Delhi and they tried to study him. But within a few days, 4 or 5 days, he just died. He just withered away. They tried to explain to this man that, look, you are here only for a few days. After that, you will be able to return to your normal habitat, to that forest, to the jungle, within your community, again hunting and running and living in the forest with the plants and animals. You will be able to go back there, don't worry. But for this man, it was impossible for him to conceive about a tomorrow, about a few days later. This concept just did not exist for him. So, it is not really, we cannot really say that this tribal man has gone beyond time. We can say that this person is sort of below time, like an animal instinct. What happened was that we were all like that about 30,000 years ago. We were all hunters gatherers and we were not thinking about the future. The concept of time was there, but it was not very important. We were not hoarding food. We were not thinking about tomorrow or the next year or the next season, not so much. We were just responding to nature, moving, staying in one place for some time, again moving, gathering and hunting. It is only when we started doing organized farming, when we went for a kind of an agricultural revolution, we started settling down with these fields of crops and grains near water sources. We started having families, and the concept of the future and the past and all these things became very important to us. Because we had to grow food and we have to harvest that food, and then we had to keep something for future, maybe for the next year, because we cannot be sure whether the rains will be the same or maybe it will be worse or even better. Nothing can be said. We were totally dependent on the vagaries of nature. So the concept of future and past and time started playing a very important role in our life. The moment you go away from this, imagine yourself that you go away from this system with nothing. You have nothing with yourself. No money, no possessions, and you just live. Maybe in the mountains, in the forests, like a monk, like a recluse, without thinking about tomorrow and yesterday and all these things. Then generally after some days, after some time, you will begin to lose a sense of time, because it is a concept that is within you. So that is basically the psychological time that we are talking about. You have also asked me about timelessness in meditation. Well, if somebody is in meditation and is aware of time, then that is not meditation. Meditation is something that you don't do. Whatever you do, it is always in time. You do and you undo, you do and you finish doing. All this is in time. Meditation starts to happen. Like, you don't do sleep. Sleep comes. Sleep happens to you. And before that, you can get ready for sleep. But you cannot really do sleep. You can start eating. You can start talking. But you cannot start sleeping. You cannot say, okay, now let me start sleeping. You cannot. Now let me start meditating. You cannot. You can start doing breathing exercises. You can start doing concentration. But you cannot start doing meditation. Meditation happens. And the moment it happens, you are beyond time. You are beyond movement. That is the whole concept of meditation, to stop movement, to stop the dance of Kali. The movement of the body, that's why you have put the body in a very static position. The movement of the breath, that's why you are doing pranayam, to still the breath, which helps to still the mind. Movement of the mind, that's why you are concentrating or you are keeping yourself blank. All this you are doing still within the framework of time. But the more you succeed in this stillness, the more time slows down for you. It does not exist. Or in other words, it is existing less. It is becoming less relevant. And then when you are absolutely still and meditation just starts to happen, then you are not existing anymore as a personality. Meditation is like a river flowing into the ocean. It is going towards and it almost flowing towards the ocean, the delta. Meditation is the delta region. The ocean is the samadhi, the total awareness of consciousness. So in that delta region, you are beyond time already. So, coming back to the first point that I had mentioned, time is fourth dimension and mind is fifth dimension only if your mind is still. Mind is completely focused, concentrated. Then that mind is beyond time. But if your mind is restless, if your mind is constantly being conditioned by the things that are happening outside, then you are within the grasp or within the trap of this conception of time. Same thing with intelligence. If your intelligence is still, completely static, then that intelligence, that dimension is beyond time. It is fourth. But if your thoughts and your ideas are constantly changing in respect of the things that are being said and done, being pronounced and uttered and articulated everywhere, then your intellect or your intelligence is subject to the vagaries of time. So all this is relative. And another very interesting point I would like to mention, if we consider space-time, does also time exist there by itself when we are not looking, let's say, or not considering? Suppose you are in the mountains and the sky is very clear and you're looking at a star which is 200 light years away. So you are looking at the star now, which is 200 light years away. So the light has taken 200 light years to reach your eyes. So what you are seeing at this moment is actually there where the star is 200 light years back before Earth time, when we considered Earth time. So what is past? Maybe if you go near the star, then the star has died. 100 light years before, maybe it had died. But because it is 200 light years far from you, it is still reaching you. The light is still reaching you. So you still don't know that it has died. So what is past in space? It is all in relation to distance that time exists. A concept of time exists, an idea of time exists, and then we measure it. We break it down, years, months, weeks, days, seconds, microseconds, milliseconds, we are breaking down as we break down atoms, which has happened in India also. There's Pal, Anupal, lot of breakdowns are there. And now they are trying to attach very powerful telescopes to satellites, and the scientists are hoping that soon they will be able to see the Big Bang that created us, that created the universe, that created the solar system, that Big Bang. They'll be able to see it. So something that had happened millions of years ago, they will be able to see it. Why? Because the telescope will be able to go back in a sense. It is so powerful that it will record, it will be able to see what is happening millions and millions and millions of light years away, the center of the universe. So in a sense, can we say that the Big Bang happened long time before and is not happening now? Can we say that? Of course we can't. It's all happening. Whatever we think as past, present and future are all there in the present, in the moment. That's why yogis say that the present is the only reality, because it is the only place where you have a connection, where you can make a connection. So make it and go deep into it, because this moment contains eternity. As a last point, in a very lighter, slightly lighter mode, I'll also give you two little allegories or anecdotes from Indian Puranas. I love telling little stories like this because it will show us, or it will show you also, how much our sages thousands of years ago had studied and understood these concepts of relativity in terms of space and time. One of them is, which is a very common story, that Shiva is in Kailash, Chitragupta is with him, and then there's a big bang somewhere, and the Kailash rocks a bit. And Shiva asks Chitragupta, what's happened? And Chitragupta looks at his records and said, Ravan is born. He's just been born. Shiva says, okay. And then after some time, again there's a big bang, a bigger bang. And again there's a big trembling, and the Kailash shakes. And Shiva says, Chitragupta, what has happened? Chitragupta again looks at his big fat register book and says, Ravan is dead. The concept of time in relation. Whatever is happening on earth, birth of Ravan, full life, a vigorous life, total life, and then the death of Ravan is just like a few seconds in the context of the consciousness or the state that Shiva is in. Or higher the dimension, slower the concept of time, or the faster the time travels. Then there's another anecdote. Indra has been invited in the council of Vishnu. Indra, as you know, is the king of the heavens, the lord of the heavens. He's proud about it. So he goes to attend this meeting, this gathering, this conference. And he sees it's a big, huge hall. So he asks an official there, where do I sit? And the official says, who are you? And Indra says, I'm Indra. I mean, everybody should recognize me. He did not say, but he's feeling that. I'm Indra, the Lord of the heaven. Oh, of course. Yes, you can go there. There is this gallery of Indras. You can sit there. So Indra is a bit shocked, a bit startled. He thought that he is the only Indra in the whole universe, and this man is talking about a gallery of Indras. So he walks over to that place and he does indeed see that it is a gallery where there are many Indras there. So he feels a bit cowed down, a bit submissive. His pride is a bit broken. So he sits down quietly, timidly. And all these dignitaries are coming and they are being ushered in, welcomed. And then this man comes, a very striking personality. He is called Romosh Muni because his whole body is filled with body hair. Big black hair filled with body hair. And Indra has never seen him. So he asks an official there, an organizer, who is this person? And the organizer says, oh, you don't know him. He is Romosh Muni. He travels through time, through dimensions, and people say that he's almost eternal. Not eternal in pure sense, but he is almost eternal, almost timeless. So Indra is totally shocked, startled, deeply respectful. And he also observes that on Romosh Muni's chest, there's a little circular space which is fair, where there is no hair. So he asks this official about that. Why is there this patch there, a kind of a balding patch on his chest? And the official says, oh, that's because every time one Indra falls, one hair of Romosh Muni falls. Just linger on these stories a little and you will realize how wonderfully, how brilliantly our sages or rishis have tried to explain or explore the concept of time in different dimensions, in different aspects of reality, in relativity, in such a way that even ordinary human beings who cannot or will never read Einstein, who will never familiarize themselves with these modern scientific concepts of the universe and creation and all that, will be able to understand in their own way, in their simple way, the idea, the concept of time and the play of the universe, and why we need to go beyond all that to the truth. And this they will understand not in a very boring textbook way, but through these beautiful stories, which have also some other lessons about ego, about pride, about fun and humor. So in this way, spiritual and scientific concepts have been merged and has been shared in India. This is an endless topic, as I had said, and this can continue forever, but I hope that we have started some kind of a discussion on this, and maybe if there is a chance or an opportunity, we can discuss further later on. Thank you for today. Namaste.